Muted.
The webinar is going to be on demand for viewing later. Each of you who are attending will get a copy of the slides and a recording of the presentation sometime later this week. All right, so before we get started, I want to thank everyone who has registered for the webinar today. We have over 120 leaders and education stakeholders representing Sarasota, Palm Beach, Miami-Dade, Orange, Escambia, Hillsborough, Collier, Leon, Lee, Brevard, Manatee, Broward, Hendry, Highlands, Seminole, Duval, St. John's, Pinellas, and Immokalee counties, and I'm sure others. We also have some of our partners from other states joining us as well, so welcome everyone. Today's webinar is going to be all about FAFSA completion, and joining us today is perhaps one of the most esteemed lineup of state and national experts we've been able to offer to date. We have 6 speakers to get into, about 75 minutes this afternoon, including questions from all of you who are listening today, so let's jump right in. For those of you who are not familiar with Florida Can, our organization was created from a cross-sector alliance of national, state, and local stakeholders of higher education to help build communities' capacity to increase their students' post-secondary and economic outcomes. In doing so, our mission is to create and strengthen a statewide network that catalyzes and supports communities to improve college and career readiness, access, and completion for all students, primarily by establishing local hubs to support this work, which we refer to as local college access networks, or LCANs. Local college access networks in Florida currently include 9 regions spanning 22 counties, which serve about half of our state's student population. Our big goal, or goal 2025, is to increase the percentage of working age adults in Florida who hold a high-quality post-secondary degree or credential from 39.9% to 60% by the year 2025. According to labor economists, the 60% threshold is an important one to meet, as projections show this is the percent of future jobs which will require some form of post-secondary education or training in the future. This slide gives you a quick glance at some of the important work happening around the state. If you're interested in learning more about OCANs or would like to consider convening local leaders in your community, please reach out to us. Our contact information will be located at the end of the presentation. One of our strategies for boosting post-secondary attainment in Florida is through our data research and policy work, helping our partners increase their knowledge base and provide answers to questions. Research and data is critical to our mission in helping students succeed. One of our most frequently asked questions we get as we travel around the state is how states and communities develop and implement an attainment goal, which brings us to our topic today, which we'll be talking about college affordability, financial aid, and FAFSA completion. In a Sunshine State survey poll released by the University of Florida and Nielsen, Floridians stated the most important issue facing the state is jobs in the economy. As you can see in the chart above, the ability to secure a well-paying job in Florida is strongly associated with one's level of education or training. In a webinar we hosted last week with Jeff Stroll, a labor economist with Georgetown University's Center on Education and the Workforce, we discussed the increasing difficulty many students face attempting to enter the workforce directly out of high school without any education or training. When tracking the workforce outcomes of these students, we found that only half of them are employed within 6 months of graduating, with about 90% earning less than $8 an hour. While it's possible to earn a living with just a high school diploma, the best way to ensure students get a good paying job is to connect them with education and training opportunities that align with the skills current and future jobs will require. Here are some of the fastest growing jobs in Florida by 2023, according to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. You can see here with few exceptions, the fastest growing jobs require some form of education or training beyond high school. You'll also notice that many of the jobs that on this list require a PSAV, or post-secondary adult or vocational certificate, which is why we maintain a broad definition of what college is to include all post-secondary credentials that offer economic value to prospective students. Unfortunately, in Florida, many Florida residents have not acquired the credentials outlined on the previous slide. According to very recent U.S. Census data, just under 40% of working age adults in Florida have an associate's degree or higher, which is up 1% from the previous year, but leaves us slightly under the nation's average. This is in addition to the 7% or so estimated to have a post-secondary certificate as our highest level of education earned, which would bring Florida's attainment rate up to about 46%. This is of concern to many community and economic developers throughout the state, as businesses are increasingly aware of the local talent pool before making a decision to start, grow, or relocate their business. Florida has 9 of the top 100 most populated metro areas in the nation, but only 2 are in the top 10 in degree attainment. To earn a high-quality degree or credential, a student must first obviously have access to a post-secondary institution. Historical college-going rate data on Florida students shows these double-digit gaps have been persistent over the last decade when comparing college-going rates with low-income and non-low-income students. Note that the college-going rate in the last 2 years includes National Student Clearinghouse data, which tracks student enrollment to virtually all post-secondary institutions in the country. One positive development in Florida, in case you missed it recently, our State Board of Education recently approved a goal to raise college enrollment rates of public high school graduates by 5% by 2020. It's certainly a public acknowledgement that the state benefits when more students have access to post-secondary opportunities. We wrote a blog last week to recap the vote if you're interested in learning more about the State Board of Ed's new strategic plan. Based on the work of several researchers, including our own analysis of Florida data, FAFSA completion is a leading indicator of post-secondary enrollment. This slide shows how we stack up against the rest of the nation. Last year, Florida ranked 37th in FAFSA completion. You'll notice that we held it relatively steady in the mid to high 30% percentage points in FAFSA completion, which is unfortunate given that our students benefit more than others in the nation when FAFSAs are completed. Just over 58% of our high school seniors that file a FAFSA receives a Pell Grant, which is one of the highest rates in the nation. As a comparison, I included Washington, D.C. on the slide, which is first in the nation in FAFSA completion. D.C. is different than Florida for obvious reasons, but notice that while our students receive Pell Grants at just about the same rate, about 20% more grads in D.C. complete the form. Now, I can't say exactly why D.C. is number one, but I bet that has something to do with the fact that the FAFSA represents the best chance students have to receive financial aid for college since they don't have state aid available to them. Probably being in the backyard of the White House and U.S. Department of Ed doesn't hurt either. So we have some first look FAFSA data that we are excited to share with you. There's a blog that we just posted earlier this afternoon. So we have FAFSA completion rates through October 7th, which was just a couple of weeks ago. They also provided to us data from last aid cycle through the first week of January to kind of create a baseline for us. And we are up almost 4,900 FAFSAs in Florida compared to not this time last year because the FAFSA wasn't available last year, but you know, compared to the first week of FAFSAs completed, which I'm sure has to do with the fact that there's been a lot of hard work to increase awareness around FAFSA, but also allowing students to use their prior year tax information to fill out the form. I just wanted to give a shout out to a handful of schools that seem to have gotten a jump on their FAFSA completions this year. Santa Fe High in Alachua, Terra Environmental Research Institute in Miami, Riverview High in Sarasota, Creekside High in St. John's, John A. Ferguson in Miami, West Orange High in Winter Garden, Gaither High School in Hillsborough, Pace High School in Santa Rosa, South Plantation in Broward, Fort Walton Beach in Okaloosa, Maples High School in Collier, Manatee High in Bradenton, the Paxton School in Jacksonville, and Spanish River Community High School in Palm Beach. I just grabbed those schools quickly as ones that seem to have gotten a big jump on their FAFSA completions compared to the first week of January last year. If you want to look at that dashboard again, take a look on our on the home page of our website. We posted a blog. We'll be updating that chart weekly as the school year goes on. And so to raise awareness and increase engagement with schools and districts around the state with regards to the need to make sure students have their FAFSAs completed, we have the Florida FAFSA Challenge, which is the second year that we've had the initiative. We post leaderboards, updates to our dashboard, send out emails to all those who are participating in the challenge. We've got a blog about a college advisor in Miami who is wearing a green suit with dollar bills printed all over it to the school to promote a Money Mondays event that he's got going on throughout the fall. So we'll be sending out updates, strategies, resources throughout the school year for those who sign up with us. Use the link on the slide there to register. So that brings us to our first presenter, and I am going to leave our intros relatively brief this afternoon because we have a lot to get to. But please, in your spare time, take a few moments when we are done to look up everyone's full bios because we have some very highly esteemed and accomplished presenters joining us today, which brings us to Miss Claire Fluker, which I'm going to go ahead and unmute you now, Claire. Claire is the Awareness and Outreach Specialist with the U.S. Department of Ed's Office of Federal Student Aid, who's going to be telling us about changes to the 2017-18 FAFSA and the host of resources made available through the Office of Federal Student Aid. Claire, is your audio working?
Let's see. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Let me bring up your slides now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Troy. And hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I can kind of let you guys know that there's no spoilers here. Everyone so far knows what the changes are. So I'm just going to go over a brief overview and, of course, as he mentioned, let you know some of the resources that we have. Let's see. If we can go back to the main page, Troy. I don't know if I can go back. To my first slide.
Sorry, I gave you control and then I muted myself.
No, that's fine. Yeah, if you can go back to the first slide with the chart, that'll be great. Essentially, the chart just shows of the two major changes that we made. And of course, the first one is that the FAFSA for 17 and 18 is available. Thank you so much. Is available October 1st. So as most of you know, and as Troy mentioned, I'm so glad to hear that so many students and parents have already filed. It's only been open for not even 3 weeks yet, for about 17 days. And it seems like the trend overall is that a lot more students and parents have gone in and completed their FAFSA already. And I think that has a lot to do with not only the change of it opening 3 months earlier, but also being able to use that earlier income and tax information. What's awesome about this is not only are all students and parents, or most students and parents prepared having their 2015 taxes already complete, there are also a lot more students and parents eligible to use the IRS data retrieval tool, which is awesome because parents and students don't have to go through a whole bunch of papers and find different documents, but they can, right from the IRS, populate their information into their FAFSA. So that's awesome. So I'm hoping the trend keeps up with a lot of students and parents getting their FAFSAs completed sooner than later. And as you can see on this chart here, we just highlight the fact that for 17-18, we are using 2015 tax and income information. And you can go to the next slide. What's interesting about this and why we keep reiterating it is because there seems to still be some confusion, not only among students and parents, but also those of us in the field. Some people have heard, or there's a rumor going around, or people think that there is an option if students want to put their 2016 information in, that they can, or that maybe in the new year they'll be able to, or once they file their 2016 taxes, they'll be able to use those. But the fact of the matter is no. On the application, we're only asking for 2015. There's only an option to put in 2015 information, and by using the IRS DRT, you can only upload 2015 tax information. So this is just a little infographic to remind you, and also to have you remind your students that yes, it's not a mistake. We are only asking for 2015 tax and income information. We'll go to the next slide. Most of you hopefully are familiar with our website for college access providers. That's the financialaidtoolkit.ed.gov. On this website, there's lots of information about not only the changes and information about that, but essentially information surrounding the whole financial aid life cycle. We have a lot of resources to help with outreach. And one of my favorite features of the website is our search financial aid tools and resources. You can literally go in and select exactly what you're looking for. And not only will come up different resources, documents, there'll be actually tweets, infographics, PowerPoints that have already been created, webinars that have been recorded. All of that information will be there if you search the Financial Aid Tools and Resources tab. So it's really, really helpful. Particularly with the changes we're having for 17-18, we wanted to make sure that there are a lot of different resources out there available, because I'm sure there's a lot of questions floating around. So if you check out that site, financialaidtoolkit.ed.gov, you can find all of that information there. All right, and of course we have all of our other kind of resources out there more geared towards students and parents. Our first thing is social media. We have presence on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, so you can check us out. And also, if any of your organizations or your schools have accounts on social media, you can feel free to repost, retweet, and stream our videos as well. Of course, studentaid.gov, that's actually the website that I like to go to if I have a quick question or want to send a quick link to have someone reference something somewhere. Studentaid.gov is awesome, particularly when talking about FSA ID as well. For some of you who've already worked with students to complete their FAFSA, as you know, you created an FSA ID with them first. There's a lot of questions still surrounding FSA ID. So if you go to studentaid.gov/FSAID, we have a list of frequently asked questions, tips, and a lot of things there as well. Also, we've done numerous FSA ID webinars. So if there's still more questions about the FSA ID, you can go to the Toolkit website and search for our webinars. Also on YouTube, on our Federal Student Aid YouTube channel, we have a really awesome 6-minute video all about creating the FSA ID, which is great to reference as well. And of course, we have our Federal Student Aid Information Center at 1-800-4FED-AID. This is a great line to use if you're having trouble, more so when you're doing the application with a student and they're getting an error message or there's some type of issue. Calling our hotline is a great way to get answers really fast. But you can also chat with us live or email us as well. So FAFSA completion by high school. It's great to know that FCAN already has an awesome way to get all of this information, but we also have it on our website too. On our studentaid.gov website, we have the completion by high school tool where you can see, of course, for all the states, the FAFSA completion for all the high schools. We started uploading the 17-18 data on Friday, and it'll be uploaded weekly from here on out. So you can go in there and check out not only information, of course, for Florida, but all the other states too, to see how we're comparing. And it's great, like I said, to hear that so far the numbers are up from last year with all the changes. It's awesome. The demo site. So the FAFSA demo site is actually one of our favorite resources that Federal Student Aid has to offer. I'm not sure how many of you have used the demo site before, but please take the time to check it out. It's a great learning tool, not only for yourself, but also a great way to train staff and to do a presentation for students and parents. This isn't necessarily a resource that I would give to students and parents to use. I don't want them to be confused by going through the demo and think that, oh, okay, well, I did the demo, I don't need to do anything else, and not realize that, you know, it's just fake. But it is a great tool to use to kind of show parents and students that the FAFSA isn't this scary thing that takes forever. And it's a great way for you to go in as well and practice. As I mentioned, it is just a demo site, so the one thing that doesn't work is the IRS DRT tool. And also, when you go through it, the EFC and information you'll get is all fake, no matter what numbers you put in. So it's more of just for you to be able to see what the questions are and to get familiar with it and go through. I really like using this tool, for example, if you're about to have a completion event with a whole bunch of volunteers who don't necessarily use the FAFSA that much and just need a quick refresher. Directing them to use this site and just go through it once or twice will be really helpful when they go to actually sit down with the parent and student to go through the application. And actually, that's all I have for now. We'll move on to the next panelist. But of course, at the end when there's questions, please feel free to ask me anything. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Claire. Yeah, and if you have any questions for Claire about changes to the FAFSA, some of the technical questions, she's going to be available at the end for Q&A. Okay, so presenting next is going to be Don Yu and Ben Castleman. I'm going to go ahead and take you all off mute right now. Don and Ben will be discussing the First Lady Michelle Obama's Better Make Room campaign and some of the evidence-based FAFSA completion strategies available for college-going students. I'm going to go ahead and switch the mouse over so that you can go ahead and take over. All right, let me know if that's working for you. There you go. Don, I don't think we can hear you. I think I unmuted you. You might need to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now, Troy?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with all of you. Really grateful for it. You know, as both Troy and Claire mentioned, everyone around the country, including Florida, is doing an incredible job with early FAFSA. You know, I actually received a note from that Secretary King sent to President Obama on October 6th. I just wanted to read this to you. It's so important to this administration. The president, he gets regular weekly updates on it. But on Secretary King's note from October 6th, he wrote to the president, "Early results are promising. On the first day the FAFSA opened, we received nearly 220,000 applications. And on October 2nd, we received over 130,000 applications, a 27.6% increase compared to the first 2 days a year ago, and a 17.4% increase compared to the year before that." So I just want to let you know this is going so well. We have to keep up the momentum, and the president is cheering us on here. I just want to give you a really, really quick overview about Better Make Room broadly before I hand it over to Professor Castleman, who has so generously joined our team to help us engage students where they are through text-based messaging. But just really broadly about Better Make Reach Higher and Better Make Room. As many of you know who are on the call, I'm sure you're probably familiar with Reach Higher, an initiative launched about 3.5 years ago. Just after the president won his re-election, the First Lady's Chief of Staff, Tina Chen, came to my old boss, Arnie Duncan, and asked and mentioned to Arnie that the First Lady would like to add to her portfolio of initiatives for the second term. We started working, and she very much wanted to tell her college-going story, her own story of growing up on the south side of Chicago in a working-class family. Her parents did not go to college. She and her brother Craig were the first ones to go to college. Also, the prejudice, barriers that she faced as a first-generation college student trying to get into Princeton, and also the isolation she felt once she got there, feeling so different than the other students there. She often tells a story about on her first day at Princeton how she saw students driving their own, other freshmen driving their own BMWs, and how different that she felt than everyone else. So that very simple message that the First Lady is trying to deliver to other low-income minority first-generation college students, a story about I grew up just like you, and if I can do it, you could do it. I mean, that really is the backbone of both Reach Higher and Better Make Room. So, about 3.5 years ago, First Lady launched Reach Higher, which became on her first college signing day event in San Antonio, Texas. Reach Higher went on to do a lot of incredible work. It's being led by my very good friend Eric Waldo in the First Lady's office. About a year ago, though, actually tomorrow is the 1-year anniversary of Better Make Room. And the reason and you have this picture from last year on October 19th, 2015, with the Better Make Room logo and with the First Lady in front of the White House. And Reach Higher had gone on to do incredible work with counselors around the country, et cetera, doing a ton of incredible work with NCAN. The First Lady felt there were two things that the First Lady wanted to accomplish with about a year ago with Better Make Room. One, from a programmatic perspective, she wanted to really, really double down on engaging students where they are. meaning, she's told us White House press releases are not going to work. Standard communications for initiatives using White House press releases is not going to work for Generation Z. You have to meet with them where they are, and that means use of Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. The First Lady has a Snapchat account now, et cetera. So really learning their language, engaging them where they are, and trying to shift cultural norms about the way Generation Z values the importance of a college education. So one of the things that that includes, so not only have we really focused on in our 1-year launch of Better Make Room is, we've spent our limited resources and time again, kind of building a grassroots movement among students about going to college, going to and graduating from college. For example, we've spent a ton of time on getting students to use the Better Make Room hashtag online on Twitter and Instagram, et cetera. It kind of helping to build a digital movement here among them, not in a very, not in a different way than, for example, hashtag Black Lives Matter has created an incredible movement around the country. Just in this 1 year of Better Make Room, the Better Make Room hashtag has made almost 800 million social media impressions in 1 year. So, that really is almost every single person in the United States seeing that hashtag 2 or 2.5 times. So anyway, in our efforts to kind of digitally organize, meet students where they are, that also means engaging them anywhere on their smartphone. So we've also decided to text them as well. And thankfully, at the time when Better Make Room was launched, Professor Ben Castleman, who's about to speak to you in much greater detail, published a book, The 160-Character Solution, which a lot of us read and thought this was a perfect fit for the First Lady, considering she's trying to engage students where they are. And Ben has shown tremendous work showing sending these behaviorally informed nudges in the form of text to students to help them complete their FAFSA form, et cetera. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Professor Castleman. Ben, would you like to take it away?
Sure. Thanks, Don. And can Troy, you and colleagues hear me okay?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, super. Well, Don, thanks so much. This is Ben, as Don said. I'm at University of Virginia and have had the privilege of working with Don and his colleagues to help lead the First Lady's Up Next campaign, a national mobile messaging campaign to provide students with information, encouragement, and access to assistance when they need it with college financial aid and loan repayment. So I'll come to that in just a few minutes, but wanted to very quickly provide you a sense of the foundation for why the First Lady's Office and Better Make Room decided to invest their time and resources in bringing text messaging to a national scale. So if we could go to the next slide, please. This is work I've had the opportunity to do going back almost 5 years at this point. And my colleague Lindsay Page is at the University of Pittsburgh, and I first used text messaging as a strategy to help students during the summer after high school, which, as I'm sure many of you encounter in your schools and in your communities, is a time where even for students who have done everything they're supposed to in terms of applying to college, getting in, choosing where to go, students encounter a variety of financial and procedural hurdles that, if they're the first in their family to go to college or from a lower income background and they don't have access to professional assistance in the summer, can be really hard and can lead students to either change their college plans or to fail to enroll at all. And we realized that texting was potentially an effective way during the summer months when students didn't always have access to professional counseling or advising to provide students with information about tasks they had to complete in order to attend the college that they indicated they planned to go to after high school graduation. And so in our first go at this, our texting campaign consisted of just 10 messages. And I think this is consistent with what we'll show you about up next in a moment. We're not messaging students every day. We're not even necessarily messaging them a few times a week. We're trying to be strategic and judicious in our outreach but making sure that with the frequency of about every week or two, that we're giving students concrete, actionable information about tasks they have to complete in order to stay on track for college. In the context of summer, you can see that involved messaging students around financial aid, orientation. And I give you a couple examples of the text messages that we sent here. This is just what a student would have seen. So, hi Alex, have you signed up for the ANU orientation? The last one's coming up. If you need to register, here's a link where you can do so. And if you need help, write back. And on the one hand, this is just a simple text message, but you can see it's highly personalized to the student, giving this student, Alex, really concrete information about what she needs to do in order to stay on track to go to this college, ANU. And Alex is getting highly personalized content, but we're sending this out at scale, thousands, tens of thousands, now hundreds of thousands of people by combining information that we and our partners have about students and their plans with publicly available information about tasks that have to get done. Next slide, please. And so we had this foundation of doing outreach and texting around the summer melt, but we've also applied this strategy again with my colleague Lindsay Page and my student Catherine Meyer at the University of Virginia to nudge students earlier in high school. And of course, this is very timely for, I'm sure, a lot of you working very hard on FAFSA to complete FAFSA. And so we did this first a couple years ago in Texas. We're working with Texas school districts in the Austin and Houston area. We were able to draw down student-level data about FAFSA completion in the way that I heard Troy share some of that data in real time at the beginning. We were using some of that same data with our partners to get a sense of who had done FAFSA, who hadn't, and then providing students with ongoing real-time updates about the status of their FAFSA application. So we were able to update our content as the weeks and months proceeded. Initially, we messaged students just encouraging them to start FAFSA, and as they went on, we were able to branch that. So for students who hadn't started FAFSA yet, we were able to encourage them to do so. For those who had, but perhaps had to verify the income and asset information they provide on the FAFSA, we were able to provide them with that kind of customized guidance. And then finally, as is the case in many of our texting campaigns, and as you'll see in Up Next, we invite students to write back and request help if they need it from a counselor. Next slide, please. And here you can see just a few examples of the FAFSA messages. So I mentioned, initially we would encourage students to start. Financial aid priority deadlines are coming up. Meet your deadlines to increase your aid. Text back if you need help. The middle text is an example of a real-time update that we provided. Our records show that you need to verify your FAFSA. Work with your parents to do this soon. For info on how to verify, then we provide a link, and so on. I should emphasize here, and I think this is very important in these texting campaigns, they weren't coming from Ben Castleman or Lindsay Page as researchers the students had no connections to. They were coming from the school, from school counselors. We worked with schools to acquire the data they needed, to write the text messages, to find a text messaging vendor. But then when the campaign started, all of the communication came from the schools, all of the interaction happened with school staff. And we see that as a very important design feature of these campaigns because students are going to trust outreach from an organization they have a connection to. They're going to respond to staff that they have a relationship with. Next slide. And I know I apologize we're going fast. Wanted to give you both a kind of sense of the evidence base and then some of the kind of look inside or under the hood of Up Next, so in the hopes that you'll encourage your students to consider signing up. What we show you here is the results from the experimental work that Lindsay and I and other colleagues have done over the last several years evaluating the impact of these nudge campaigns at critical junctures in students' educational trajectories. So you can see on the left-hand side whether we're nudging students about FAFSA completion, in the middle providing them with summer melt guidance, or on the right encouraging students to refile their financial aid. We're generating substantial increases in college outcomes, whether college enrollment or college persistence. The orangish bars are the students who received our text, the blue are the students who didn't, and consistently we're increasing by substantial margins whether students enroll or persist in college by providing them with timely, actionable information at these critical decision-making junctures. And it's worth emphasizing these campaigns cost several dollars per student, if not much less. Next slide. So that provides the basis for Up Next. As Dawn mentioned and I alluded to, the First Lady's national text messaging campaign to provide students with information about college and financial aid. The campaign, we've been signing students up since July. Students have been receiving messages since mid-September, and we're enrolling new waves of students as we speak, although our enrollment window is starting to come to a close, and I'll come back to that at the end. But students will continue to receive messages through January and then perhaps beyond once we have a chance to step back and evaluate how the launch and first few months of Up Next proceeded. Next slide, please. So we have 3 different campaigns for Up Next right now that are all going in parallel, one targeting high school seniors, one targeting current college students, and a final one targeting college graduates. And you can see on this slide the content that we provide is, of course, relevant to each population. So high school seniors right now are getting messages around college search, FAFSA, of course, college applications, all the way up to college graduates who are messaging to make sure they have the information they need to make informed decisions around loan repayment. We strongly encourage parents and school counselors to sign up as well as to encourage your students to sign up. We want to make sure that the information that we're providing to Up Next is of use to you as educational professionals and parents, if there are parents on the line as well. And we hope that it's informative for you, but that also you can then pass it on to your students. Signing up is incredibly easy. As you can see on the right, you just need to text the word college to the number 44044. The system, all through your phone, you don't have to go to any website, walks you through a couple of questions, mainly with the goal of making sure we get you the right content that's appropriate for the student, or if you're an educator or a parent, for your child. And then you're signed up and the messages start coming very shortly thereafter. Next slide, please. So this is the kind of under the hood portion of the presentation, I guess you could say. We wanted to give you a sense of actual message flows that a student experienced. This is all automated content, and we'll show you in a moment. I think we have a slide on what an actual advising experience is like. But you can see on the left here, we affirm the fact that the student has taken proactive steps to apply to college, and ask them if they're ready to start the FAFSA. If they reply yes, we congratulate them on that decision, make sure they know about this important change to being able to file FAFSA early, and prompt them to write back for more information if they would find it useful. And then the system walks them through a series of important steps that we want to make sure they know about. So that's one structure of message that students receive. Another structure you can see in the middle is to really make use of graphics and media and images. We know, of course, I'm sure everyone on the line can relate to how much images make up the heart of how young people communicate. And so we're trying to, as Dawn said, the First Lady has a very strong commitment to meet people where they are, and we're trying to embrace that fully. The middle message you can see is an example of asking students if they have a list of colleges yet. This student says no, and we say, okay, no problem, we can help you out. We give them a short graphic with some concrete steps to take. You can see at the bottom an actual screen of the image, an actual screenshot of the college scorecard, because we want students to have a kind of visible connection with the kind of information they could access when they go to the scorecard. And on the right, in the interest of time, I'll move on, but you can see similar automated information around loan repayment. Next slide, please. One of the things we are most grateful for and I think proud of with Up Next is we are not just providing automated information, even though we're doing this at a national scale. When students have questions that fall outside of these kind of automated message flows, we're partnering with 4 of the most prominent and successful college advising organizations in the country to provide students with free one-on-one real-time college advising from College Possible, College Advising Corps, College Forward, and Inside Track. And on the right-hand side, we provide an example of what a student experiences. And so you can see a student got a message, maybe it was a message about financial aid, and we asked them if they were ready to start FAFSA. Instead of replying yes or no, the student wrote back, well, what if I'm undocumented or a friend of mine is? That's a message that we will, of course, want to make sure we can answer for a student one-on-one. Our automated content wasn't speaking to, and so we've got a great strategic escalation model in place where Don and his colleagues do an initial review of messages they come in, flag messages like this that would benefit from additional attention, and then the gray boxes you see on the screen here are an actual advisor's response from one of our partners. So you can see the advisor asks the student where they live, the student writes back New York, The advisor then makes sure the student knows that in New York, undocumented students are eligible for in-state tuition and fees. And then they can go on and have an ongoing, the advisor can provide ongoing guidance to make sure that student qualifies for that in-state tuition. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we are still in an active enrollment phase with Up Next. We would like every young American, every parent, every educator who feels they would benefit from additional information, encouragement, and access to one-on-one help with college or financial aid to sign up. Any student, any parent, any counselor can do this just by texting the word college to 44044. We have just about just about a week left in the enrollment window. So we will, through Better Make Room and other channels, be confirming when the enrollment window ends. So please make sure to follow Better Make Room for lots of great content, but also specific for Up Next enrollment. So we really encourage you, if you haven't yet, to make a concerted push between now and the beginning of next week. After that, students who sign up will, of course, receive messages, as I said, through January. But after about a week from now, our enrollment window will have closed for this portion of the Up Next campaign, and so we want to sign up as many people as we can in the next week as possible. Certainly our goal going forward, and I know Dawn's goal, the First Lady's goal, is that Up Next can live beyond the administration. So this is not the only time students will have the opportunity to sign up, but for the fall campaign, we strongly encourage folks to sign up themselves, have students sign up over the next several days. I think that's everything I have. Troy, let me know if there's any final slides. If not, really appreciate the chance to be with you all.
Of course, yes. Thank you so much, Don and Ben. That was an impressive amount of content to get through in a relatively short period of time, so thank you very much for joining us again. Ben has to jump off and join another call, but Don is going to be hanging out with us to answer questions when we've wrapped up. And if there are any of you who like reading academic papers, I'd encourage you to go out and check Ben's faculty page at the University of Virginia site. He's done research on lots of student access and completion type topics in higher ed, and he's even done some research on the Florida Student Assistance Grant Program. So thank you again, Don and Ben, and we are going to keep moving right along. Let me just switch my controls here. Okay, perfect. So, hold on. Okay, we're going to unmute Elizabeth, who is with NCAN and has been spearheading the new National Digital Form Your Future campaign. She's going to give us a quick demo of the site and all the resources that are available. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the website now. Elizabeth, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Troy. I appreciate it. I'm going to give you guys a very quick tour of the Form Your Future campaign. And first, let me backtrack and say, Florida, you guys are doing great work on FAFSA completion. You're a leading light, I would say, nationally. I wish every state had as organized an effort as you all do. You're really helping to make a difference for more students. So congratulations on that, and thank you for their hard work. The National Form Your Future campaign is really inspired by a couple of things. One is I think what we really despite all the hard work that many of us do, you folks in Florida as well as other college access and success organizations and schools around the country, our FAFSA completion rate for high school seniors is still way too low. Troy showed us some data earlier. It sort of depends on what number of high school seniors you use and at what point in the process you cut off the measurement, but we know that nationally something around 50-some% of high school seniors still have not completed the FAFSA by the time they graduate from high school. And given the fact that they've done the hard work of persisting through high school and the fact that we know that to succeed in their future they really are going to need some sort of post-secondary education, that rate is still way lower than we wish it would be. And so this summer, NCAN did a little bit of original research as we were considering a national communications campaign about FAFSA to dig into the question of what is it that students don't know, why aren't they filing? And we found a little bit of a nuance of something that isn't going to be surprising to many of you who worked in college access and success before, but it is, I think, surprising to folks who work day in and day out around the topic of financial aid and college access and success. We found in a survey, it was a small survey, 75 students who were recent high school grads who intended to go to college but had not yet enrolled. We found that more than half of them did not know what financial aid is. So what that said to us is not only do we have to continue our work explaining the nuances and intricacies of financial aid, exactly how it works, we need to continue our work supporting students with FAFSA completion, but we all need to probably also do a better job in just letting students know that there is money available for them to help pay for their college costs. So that all sort of related to the background of the Form Your Future campaign, which is a digital communication strategy. It's really an attempt to help leverage all of our local and state efforts into a national effort that not only can help support what we all do, what we've been doing, what we will continue to do, but also help us help spread the words further into our communities so that more students get the message that there is money to help them go to college, and for us to turn up the volume on that issue. So the Form Your Future campaign is a free open access campaign. I can compare it for you to something like, I don't know if any of you perhaps have heard of the Giving Tuesday campaign that started a few years ago. It's an effort to get people to donate to their favorite charitable causes on the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So we have Black Friday, which is a shopping holiday, then we have Cyber Monday, which is when people do a lot of their Christmas shopping, their holiday shopping online on Monday after Thanksgiving. And a few years ago, the 92nd Street Y in New York City and some other partners created this campaign called Giving Tuesday to help create a concerted effort to draw attention to the opportunity to donate to local nonprofits. And it's the kind of campaign that's really taken off. Folks have sort of used that theme and done a lot of their own things with it. So that's the kind of campaign, if you're familiar with it, that Form Your Future is set up to be. So Troy has the site up here, and it's pretty simple. There are just 3 main sections of the campaign that organize the resources that are available to you. The first is called Get Educated. And the main resource there, if you hover over what's included, it'll show you essentially, this is a FAFSA completion guide. It is designed to be used with FAFSA completion volunteers or anyone who might be answering questions. It would be an ideal resource for school counselors, for example, who are new to FAFSA. And Troy has clicked on one of the sections. You can download it either in its entirety with all of its sections or section by section. And it is a newly designed resource. It really represents, there are lots of FAFSA completion resources available, of course, but this one we think really distills the most important information for folks who will be helping low-income dependent students complete the FAFSA. So it's a great guide to use for training. It would also be appropriate for students and parents for use with them as well if they are looking for a resource. The second section is called Spread the Word, and this is our outreach toolkit, and this is probably the place that I encourage you to spend most of your time. There are lots of great resources in here, digital resources. The very first one, we have made the logos for the campaign available, so anyone who's interested in using the logos, even adopting the logo sort of as a brand name of your own campaign if you're interested. Those are all available for you to use. But then probably the most exciting thing are these social media toolkits. Right now there's one available for October through November. And this is literally a week-by-week calendar of messages that our marketing agency has designed for use, specifically targeting low-income, first-generation high school seniors. So these are going to be teen-friendly messages, reinforcing information about the availability of money for college, the likelihood of students receiving money for college, and they have some really fun graphics that go along with them. So we encourage you to check these resources out. If you are doing social media directly to students, we encourage you to send it out there. Oh, so there's a great one. That one with the crown was about your odds of being homecoming king or queen versus your odds of getting financial aid for college. The student-driven messages are set to direct kids to FAFSA.gov. Of course, you could also, if you were interested in using these messages to promote your own FAFSA completion events, you could also adapt them to direct students to your website for more information about your own events in your community. And then the third section is the host an event section, and these are some resources that, similar to what was available under the former College Goal Sunday USA site. And it has some basic information for folks, perhaps if you have never done a FAFSA completion event before, or if you're working with schools that are doing them for the first time. There are some great basic resources in here about how to plan an event, and then there are also some sample pieces of communication that you would use with students or parents related to the event. And I'll point out that the parent-facing materials in the toolkit are available also in Spanish, as is the FAFSA completion guide that's available in the first section of the website. So, for example, here Troy's got a poster up that you could fill in with your own information about your local FAFSA completion assistance opportunities. So we hope that these materials are helpful to you all. I think one of the ideas behind this campaign is the more that people use the brand, the more that folks use the hashtag #FormYourFuture, the more it will reinforce the campaign nationally and help to elevate the issue and continue to spread the reach of the message to students that there is money available for college. So please give it a look and use it to the extent it's helpful to you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I encourage you all to dig into the website, dig into the resources. Everything has been, designed with, you all in mind who are hosting events and putting together resources. Obviously, things have a really great look to them that's attractive to students, which is really important. And the Form Your Future campaign is a natural, well, it's an evolution and a project of a lot of hard work that's been going on at NCAN, so thank you very much for that. But it's an evolution of the work that's been going on with College Goal Sunday for quite a long time. And which brings us to our next presenter, Lori Oxier, who is our intrepid traveler today. As FAFSA's Director of Outreach Services, she travels all across the state to make sure that you all have the info and resources you need to make sure students have the state and federal aid needed to access college. Lori, I went ahead and unmuted you. Let's see if we can hear you.
Hi, Troy.
Hi, Lori.
Okay, so thank you all for attending today's webinar. And I just want to talk briefly about the FAFSA data completion project that we have within the Florida Department of Education. In an effort to support the national FAFSA completion efforts, the Florida Department of Education Office of Student Financial Assistance offered all Florida school districts in fall 2015 the opportunity to sign a data sharing agreement in order to access FAFSA data completion information via the State Student Financial Aid Database, or as we call it, SSFAD for short. The data sharing agreement allows districts to choose which schools can access the data, and the school or schools can then determine who their SSFAD users are. Once the data sharing agreement is complete, SSFAD users can sign in and view student-level data. The report is built upon the district's transcript submission and shows whether or not the student has completed the Florida Financial Aid application and the FAFSA. The SSN between the student transcript and the FAFSA must match, so it is important that districts submit transcripts including this information. It is important to note that if the SSN is not provided on the transcript or the SSN does not match between the two documents, the FAFSA column will default to none. For districts that are currently participating in this initiative, we expect the report will populate 17-18 FAFSA data for 16-17 seniors beginning early next week. For districts that are not participating but would like to, please contact me at lori.oxier@fldoe.org for additional information. We look forward to working with everyone this academic year, and as was reported earlier, we are seeing an increase in the number of FAFSA completions, so that's exciting. And if you have any questions or need additional information, please reach out to me via telephone or email. Thank you, Troy.
All right, thank you, Lori. I'm going to go ahead and unmute everyone because we're going to get started with Q&A soon. If you're listening and have a question, please go ahead and ask away in the chat or questions feature. And in the meantime, I'm actually going to bring up Lori's website for College Goal Sunday because we have several host sites that have gotten started already. So the website is www.navigatingyourfinancialfuture.org/CGS Florida. Let me go ahead and throw that into the chat box really quick. You can see here, if you click on locations, there's a map of the host sites. Several of them have started already, but we've got many more coming up. You can see dates here, October 23rd, November 1st, November 6th. Any comments there about College School Sunday sites this fall, Lori?
I was talking to Thomas Vo over the weekend from the State College of Florida, and he said they had such a great turnout at their College Goal Sunday location. They ended up having to actually open a second computer lab to accommodate all the foot traffic that they had. So this is a great resource if, if students or families that really would like that one-on-one assistance in completing their FAFSA, they can attend one of those College Goal Sunday locations, or if they have a more complex situation and they need that one-on-one counseling, they can also contact a member of our outreach team within the Florida Department of Education, and we would be more than happy to assist them with either the FAFSA or the Florida Financial Aid application, whichever one they may need help with.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Lori. So we're going to open up the questions now. We've got several here in the queue. The first question I'm going to direct to Claire. Claire, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, perfect. So the first question is, are undocumented students eligible for federal financial aid?
Great question. Unfortunately, undocumented students are not eligible for federal student aid. However, some schools in some states still encourage undocumented students to complete the FAFSA because the schools can use it to determine how they give them their institutional aid, and the states can use it if some states decide to give students aid from there. However, the one thing I would recommend for working with undocumented students, make sure you talk to the financial aid office of the school they're interested in to see if they should complete a FAFSA or if they have their own form they want the student to complete. But just to be clear, no, undocumented students are not eligible for federal student aid.
All right, thank you. And I'm sure that the person who asked the question is aware, but I'm going to mention it just in case others on the call are not. There are students, if they meet certain eligibility criteria, who may be undocumented that can qualify for in-state tuition in Florida. This is the third academic year that students have been able to utilize that waiver for out-of-state tuition, which has been a big help. And I know that we have somewhere around 2,500 students who use that waiver during the first year it was available in Florida. And we're actually collecting some data now on the second year that form was available, so that we know more about the students who are using it. The name of the waiver, it has an obnoxious name, unfortunately. It's the out-of-state tuition waiver for select high school graduates. Isn't that exciting? So the best way to access the form is most likely going to be on your college or university's financial aid website. But while I ask another question, I'm going to look up, I'm going to find a link and throw it into the chat box so that you all have that. Okay, next question about the slides. They will be available later in the week once we get the recording set and taken care of, and a survey available. We'll go ahead and send that out. It should be ready in a couple days. Someone mentioned that they tried just now to text college to the 44044 number on their cell phone, and it said that there are charges associated with it. Is there a charge? Don, can you answer that one?
Sure, happy to. So that is a great question. There is no charge at all for counselors, teachers, principals, schools, school districts, states, cities, etc. There is no charge at all. We pay for all the costs of sending out the text. That boilerplate that you saw after it says Mrs. Obama wants you to graduate from college, and it says standard text messaging rates may apply, is actually required by this federal texting law. I had to include that because there is a small chance that, for example, the only place where somebody might have to pay something, and that is, we would have paid for these costs if it were possible to do, but there's no way for me to do it really. But if a person who does not, for example, a student texts in, they do not have unlimited texting. They are not on an unlimited texting plan, and let's say they get 500 texts per month, as an example. Up next, on average, we'll send up in a normal campaign, say for a high school senior, might be between 15 and 25 texts. So there's a chance that those texts might push a student over their 500 limit. If that did happen, even then, I mean, you're talking, de minimis costs for that student for those, 15 to 25 texts they might receive. But again, for counselors and schools that want to execute on this program, there is no cost at all for them at all.
Thanks, Don. Let's see, we have a couple of questions. Couple more questions. One question here is, if their income is less in 2016 than in 2015, they would still have to complete FAFSA with 2015 taxes and then reach out to the college they will be attending to provide their 2016 taxes. That sounds like a question for Claire or Lori. Anyone want to take that?
I'll actually pass that to Lori, because essentially what they said is exactly what I would say. Since on the federal end we don't ask for anything besides 2015 information, we kind of have the student defer to the school to see if the institution they're applying to will take any extra supportive financial documents from 2016.
The only time, this is Lori, but the only time that I could see them wanting to do that would be if they were asking for a professional judgment. You know, say for instance, I've completed the FAFSA with the 2015 information, but then I've lost my job in 2016, so there was a substantial loss of income, then, you know, they would be able to reach out to the school to discuss whether or not a professional judgment is appropriate, but that's a case-by-case basis, and that is strictly up to the school to decide whether or not they can work with the student on that matter.
All right, go ahead and let me know if that answers your question, I'm sure. And you can provide your email address too if you want to follow up directly with Lori or Claire. We love financial aid, but sometimes these questions get quite can get in the weeds. Here's a question: why is it so important that the FAFSA, why is it so important that the FAFSA is open early? I understand it gives students more time to complete, but are there other repercussions? Claire, do you want to go ahead and take that one?
Yeah, I was just kind of processing the word repercussions. Essentially, the goal with us moving up the FAFSA launch 3 months earlier was to more so align the FAFSA process with the college application process. So the goal was, of course, to give students more time. That was the main thing, and kind of have it align more, and also more certainty. The goal was you know, maybe not this year, depending on how the financial aid offices are able to do it. But the goal is not only to have students apply earlier, but to get back their financial aid award letters earlier, so they can know way before May 1st or whatever that deadline the student may have to commit to a school, that they can fully know what aid they're going to get from all of the schools they applied to. So it's really to give them some more information in order for them to make their college choice. That's really the goal. I'm sure we've all had stories of students who, you know, that day came where they needed to, you know, submit with this or commit to a school, but they weren't sure because they were still waiting on a financial aid award letter from this school, or they weren't 100% sure what their financial aid was going to be. So the goal was really to aid in that college choice for students and their families.
Lori, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I think Claire covered it. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Lori, there's a kind of follow-up question about filling out the FAFSA early. So the first thing is that the Florida financial aid application for state aid is also available October 1st, correct?
Yes, that is correct. We did open the application October the 1st. So we do encourage all high school seniors to visit floridastudentfinancialaid.org and complete that application in addition to the FAFSA.
Yeah, so the Florida financial aid application is required for students to gain access to any form of Florida financial aid, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And then there are some sources of financial aid that also requires the FAFSA in addition to the Florida financial aid application, like the Florida Student Assistance Grant. So it's fantastic that OSFA elected to move up that date to align with the FAFSA, because obviously a lot of students are filling out both forms. So yeah, so that was really great news that you all did that. All right, Lori, another question kind of related to filling out the FAFSA early. Has there been anything that you have heard regarding colleges and universities' institutional deadlines? You know, for example, many colleges had financial aid deadlines, you know, early on, in like you know, after the start of the new year, and it sounds like there's a question about to what extent colleges and universities in Florida are moving up their institutional deadlines for financial aid.
Yes, we've definitely seen some of the dates being moved up. For example, I'm looking at the University of South Florida at the moment, and their 17-18 FAFSA priority deadline is going to be due by January the 1st, 2017. Normally that deadline would have been sometime in March. So we are seeing a lot of the schools are moving up those priority deadlines. I've seen other schools who even have early priority deadlines of like November the 1st. So we always encourage our students and families, whatever school you're interested in attending, you need to visit their website, find out what their FAFSA priority deadline is, and ensure that you are meeting that deadline.
Yeah, for a lot of financial aid offices in Florida, they were kind of determining how to adjust deadlines, very late into the summer, which is not typical. And so make sure that you check, in each individual college and university deadlines if you have questions about that. There's a kind of a point of clarification on one of the earlier questions. If a student has a legal guardian and does not live with their parents, are they considered an independent student?
Yes,
if
definitely.
they are in a legal guardianship as appointed by their court authority, yes, they are independent for FAFSA purposes.
All right, perfect. Okay, we've got two more questions, so I'm going to try to get to both of those before we wrap up here. We've got a couple of minutes left. Would the available financial aid be decreased for students who apply later in the school year? For example, for unaccompanied homeless youth who surface to school staff later in the school year, would that student be at a disadvantage by virtue of applying later in the year? I guess my first answer to that would be that the earlier a student fills out financial aid, the better. And depending on the source of financial aid, some sources of aid run out, early on in the school year. So anytime a student fills out their financial aid applications, whether it's the Florida financial aid application or the FAFSA, the earlier the better, certainly. Go ahead with that. Was that Lori or Claire? I'm not sure.
Well, I was going to just say, when you're filling out the FAFSA, the federal Pell Grant is an entitlement program, which means if you qualify for it, you're going to receive that funding. However, there are other need-based programs, whether they're on a federal level or state level or institutional level. Those need-based programs have limited funding. And what we see is that most institutions will award that money first come, first serve. So you definitely benefit by completing, your financial aid applications sooner rather than later, just simply because, by the time, if you were to wait until March of next year to do your FAFSA, at that point, a lot of the need-based aid may already be spent. And you may, it may just decrease your eligibility.
All right, let's go lightning round. 2 questions, 30 seconds. I would like to know what will change in the event the family's income changes for 2016. Will students need to resubmit an update due to income change, whether it's positive or negative?
That really goes back to that professional judgment, because when you're completing the 17-18 FAFSA, you're importing in your 2015 information with that IRS data retrieval tool. So it would be in your best interest to contact the institution directly to determine whether or not they can complete a professional judgment based on your documentation of that income change. And again, this is a case-by-case basis. It's up to the institution to determine whether or not they can take that into consideration.
All right, and last question. What is the maximum a student can be awarded for an undergraduate degree and a graduate degree? That's going to depend on the source of financial aid, most likely, but Claire, Lori, do you want to take a stab at that one? The maximum a student can be awarded, let's just say, for an undergraduate degree.
Yeah, Troy, you pretty much had it. There's maximums, of course, for our grant programs, but in terms of like the maximum amount of unsubsidized loan you can get, it really depends on the cost of attendance of the school. And of course, that varies by institution. But any questions about our maximums, those are on our website currently for 1718 at studentaid.gov.
All right, perfect. Thank you all so much for joining us today for a very ambitious agenda on the webinar. I want to thank all of our speakers who joined us this afternoon. Really, really appreciate all the wisdom, resources, and information shared. We have lots more data that we're going to be updating throughout the school year, so be sure and visit our website for updates. We'll be posting all of our slides and recording to our event page, so the slides will get sent out if you register, but also posted to our website. We have an upcoming webinar with Adrian Johnson, a Bureau Chief of Labor Market Statistics at the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. That's coming up November 8th at 2 p.m., so stay tuned for an announcement on that. We're going to be talking about Florida workforce demands and trends. Our 2017 Florida College Access and Success Summit, which last year drew about 250 K-12 and higher ed business and nonprofit leaders to the event last year. It's going to be taking place May 10th and 11th in Orlando. If you have a great idea on, let's say, a FAFSA completion strategy, we encourage you to submit a proposal to present at the summit. Our deadline is in a couple of weeks on November 1st. We want to thank our sponsors for making webinars like this possible, the Helios Education Foundation and the Swift Family Foundation. And thank you all for joining us today. Don't forget to visit the Florida Can website, sign up for future releases, newsletters, and webinar announcements. Thank you, thank you, thank you, everyone, to our speakers again. Please enjoy the rest of your day.